Hello again. Today's footage is going to be of finishing the first two walls, which are kind of the most important two walls out of the four, because the wind and rain pretty much always comes from the south and east. So those are the two walls I'm trying to get done first, so that spare room area is functional. But first, I need to build myself a little work stand, and I have a couple of sawhorses that at some point in the past, I don't remember exactly what happened. They were either hit with the truck or tractor, and I think it was when I had the tractor stuck, but I don't recall. So I need to basically I just tore some of the nails out, so I'm gonna fix them and get them repaired. This first one needed a little one of the braces replaced, so I went and found myself a little scrap piece of wood, and we'll get that improved and fixed, and then work on the other one. They actually went together pretty easy. I mean, sawhorses are fairly straightforward build, especially this I-beam style. And they've served pretty well. My only regret about them was having had to buy lumber during the height of the pandemic. So those sawhorses are like $40 a piece. I don't know. They took two 2x4s per sawhorse. So yeah, they're like $15 a piece. It's crazy to think that lumber prices were so high. But it is what it is. So now that I've got all the nails pounded in, I'm actually throwing a screw in, a 4-inch construction screw, just to make sure these don't go anywhere. And then I can use them as table stands. And these are some 1x12, I believe, from one of the logs I had milled with the Alaskan mill, and they turned out to make a pretty good table. So I've got a pile of smallish boards that are still up under the pavilion lean-to, and then I've got this pile of boards that have actually been drying for a while. So these boards I could actually put battens up right now if I want to, which I may actually do soon. I need to get back up there. I ended up not finishing the top screws, just because I wanted to make sure I had Emily here while I was working on that part to just help make sure the ladder was secure, since that end of the trailer's not exactly the most stable. But what I'm doing right now is going through each one and putting the 20-degree bevel on the bottom. And 20 degree isn't necessarily any number special, it was just an easy one to remember. But then that ends up facing bevel towards the building, so that any moisture that runs down the board by the time it gets to the bottom of the board, there's a very fine line at the tip of the bevel, so the moisture has nowhere to go but down off the board. It can't wick its way up towards the other lumber on the building. And as you can see, these actually go up pretty quick. I mean, like I said in the last video, I love this part of the project because it just suddenly feels like you're making so much progress after so many little steps to get to this point, and a lot of those little steps don't always feel like you're making progress, because you like putting up all of the little pieces of girts and things so that there's a solid block at the top and bottom of each one, and filling in all the little gaps around rafters and things like that. And you do all that stuff and go back and look at it, and you're like, wow, did I really do anything? But then you get to this point and all of a sudden it's like, bam, there's all this progress because you have a whole wall. So it's probably my favorite part of the entire... Well, I take it back. Getting off the roof once the roof is done is my favorite part. This is probably my second favorite part then. Although, I don't know, it'll tie pretty good with putting the door up, because when I put the door up, all of the trim will be up, all of the siding will be up, all of the the subfloor at least. I don't think we'll hold off on a door until we get around to doing the actual flooring, but the subfloor will be done. This is the only real challenge of the siding. Probably, I guess any siding technically is. You just have to cut around certain things. So I'm doing a bunch of little relief cuts so that I can then go back in and break the little pieces, and then I don't know if you're actually supposed to do this, but I use the blade itself to sort of clean that out and just slide the blade sideways once you get the majority knocked out. A chisel is technically the proper tool. And see, here is the challenge with working on this side of the trailer, is the ground is just not really ladder worthy. So I think when I get ready to do trim, what I'm probably going to do is build some kind of cribbing of some sort at either corner, and then I'll run like a 2x10, 2x12, something along those lines. Put a couple of those across that so I have an actual platform. Basically scaffolding. Just build a set of scaffolding. And then I can hurry and do all of the trim around the roof, things like that. Get all the battens measured and figured out. Then I'll be able to just get all of that done one afternoon probably, as long as that scaffolding structure is there. That would be nice to not have to go up and down a ladder too. It's interesting. Sometimes this vantage point, where the camera has been positioned, is kind of surprising that it's. I guess I need to, just take into account that it is a wide angle view, so it makes it look like I'm further away than I actually am, because I'm really only like 10 feet away from the camera, maybe 15 feet tops. So I had actually thought that was a decent spot to put the camera, but clearly it's... Or maybe the challenge is that I need to change a setting, I guess, in the camera. Maybe you can turn that off so that it's not such a wide field of view, but I don't know. The beam that I'm cutting a notch so these boards will fit around was actually intended to come out and have some sconces mounted to it. We now that everything is built and in position, we're not entirely sure we're going to continue with that idea. We might. We'll have to just kind of see as we go further down the line. But now I'm just doing the same thing on the other side, figuring out what the measurements are that cutout needs to be. There we go. And see, interestingly, the camera is now like maybe 2 feet behind me. But that definitely made a big difference, and now you can clearly see there the beam that I have to work around. And on the one hand, if you look at the top of the boards, up where the purlins actually are at the roof level, I kind of screwed this part up. I technically should have done the boards all the way up to the roof, and when I initially measured the first one, I did that, the center one. And for some reason, I continued the angle at the level of the bottom of the purlins. So that'll come back a little bit to be a bit of a frustration when I go to do the trim. I'll have to make sure the trim is fit really well around those purlins. As far as past that point, it won't, once the trim's up, it won't make much difference because it'll have spray foam filled in behind that, so that little inch difference won't make too much difference. It just means the trim has to be thicker, because now the trim has to come all the way down. I can't attach it at the top, so instead of being able to do like a 4-inch trim, for instance, and attaching it along the top of the boards, it'd have to be a couple of inches to be able to attach to the top of the board securely, but then be the 3-inch thickness of the purlins on top of that. So it's not going to be a huge deal when we get to that point. It just is potentially a challenge. And so when there's nothing to trim around, you can see these once they're cut, they just go up super, super fast. I don't worry too much about making these level, because I'm going to be putting a 3-inch batten on top of that, so if there's a little bit of a gap, it's not going to make any real noticeable difference one way or the other. But since I was coming to the end of the structure, I did want to make sure I got that last board level so I didn't have to try and trim it. And here you can see that this is what I was talking about in the last video, where I put up a series of 3 screws into each one to make sure that it's all secure, but I make sure they're close enough to the center of the board that there's not going to be any noticeable shrinkage in between the screws to cause the board to split. And I'm by no means an expert at this, but that's just been my experience so far. I've got 3-4 structures that I've built so far, all sided with cottonwood like this. The one thing I have learned from those structures is every time I made one, I would build a bigger overhang, because cottonwood isn't rot resistant, so you do have to keep it dry and protected from the rain. And I would learn the hard way that a 6-inch overhang is nowhere near big enough, and a 12-inch and a 18-inch isn't anywhere big enough. So I've had people ask why the overhangs on this structure are so large. And on the one hand, it will create problems if we ever take this out on a road to take it somewhere. However, flags and flashing lights and a wide load permit will be enough to get by that, get past that. But we've learned that a 3-foot overhang is enough that I don't have to worry about these boards getting wet. So far, since I got that overhang up, I haven't had water get on these boards at all, so that's definitely a bonus. But this will be that last board for the night. I figured this is a decent stopping point, and the battery was about to run dead anyway. So we'll get this guy screwed in, and then we'll call that a night. As always, thank you for taking your time out today and watching. God bless you and yours, and stay safe and healthy out there. And there we now have basically a finished sided wall.